is the rundown from WUFT News, exploring our community from top to bottom. I'm Kristen Shermont-Spina. Coming up on the show, an intersex teacher says he was fired because he was perceived as transgender. Now he's suing the school district. And later, what would you do with all your extra time if you stopped using social media? We asked UF students, and they had some interesting responses. But first, it's been a whirlwind week in the search for a new president of the University of Florida. The only finalist for the position, Dr. Stuart Bell, was appointed interim president after the Florida Board of Governors refused to hold his confirmation hearing. Earlier today, I spoke with Miami Herald state government reporter Garrett Shanley, who's been following the topic closely. I began by asking him to walk us through how we got here.
It's almost hard to find a place to start. The natural point would be when he was announced as the sole finalist of UF's most recent presidential search last month. And pretty immediately, he starts getting backlash from conservative activists, some pretty high-ranking Republican officials, over his record on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at his previous institution, University of Alabama, where he served as president for a decade. That backlash kind of mounts, and then last week, the chair of the Board of Governors, which oversees the state university system and must confirm campus president appointments, he sends a letter to the university system chancellor saying that he has some concerns about governance regulations across the system, particularly at UF, and he wanted to delay the confirmation of Dr. Bell until those were resolved. So that kind of sends everybody at UF into a tizzy, and in a way to get Bell into office and to kind of bypass that Board of Governors level delay, they install him as interim president on Monday. So that appointment goes into effect on July 1st.
And this debate, which started over Bell and his qualifications, has since kind of devolved into a almost personal spat between UF Board of Trustees Chair Maury Hosseini and Florida Board of Governors Chair Alan Levine. Can you talk a little bit about what both sides are kind of arguing in this case?
I think Bell's candidacy started off very much mirroring the candidacy of Santaono for the UF presidency. He got rejected at the Board of Governors level. But now it's kind of a twist in the whole thing, which is that a lot of the conversation for the past week hasn't been about DEI or anything culture war related. It really is a kind of power struggle between two people who have been in Republican politics in Florida for a long time. So Maury Hosseini, he's the chairman of UF's board. And then Alan Levine, he's the Board of Governors chair. He's been on the Board of Governors a long time. So these aren't exactly people you would expect to be crossing swords with each other. But Levine has voiced some pretty severe concerns about the amount of control that UF grants Chairman Hosseini in governing UF affairs. So in Levine's view, he holds a pretty tremendous sway over what happens at UF compared to what the average university board chairman does.
Tell me now a little bit about Dr. Bell being interim. How is that different from him just being appointed president by the Board of Governors?
Well, looking at Dr. Bell's interim contract and his permanent contract, they seem very similar in terms of compensation. You know, the annual base salary is $2 million. There's a lot of the same terms there. Things have been moving very quickly on this. Again, this has been a pretty whirlwind week for the UF presidential search. So on Tuesday, the Board of Governors scheduled a meeting for July 1st to confirm Bell as permanent president. So that's the same day that he would start as interim president. So if the Board of Governors does end up confirming him, we're going to have a couple hours of interim president Stuart Bell before we drop the interim from his title. And there was a Board of Governors meeting yesterday where things got a little snippy, a little feisty between Hosseini and Levine, but by the end it seemed like they reached a compromise where the Board of Governors will hire an outside consultant to review governance regulations across the university system, and then they're going to move on from there.
And what can we expect to see next with this story?
For what's next with Bell, his confirmation vote happens in Tampa on July 1st. I think we can expect it to play out a little bit like what happened with Santa Ono. I think he's going to get some hardball questions about DEI, maybe about his performance at Alabama with U.S. News rankings. But it's expected right now that he will get confirmed. That's always subject to change. You know, expectations were all over the place for what was going to happen with Dr. Ono last year. But, you know, everything that I've been hearing about how that meeting is going to go seems like right now it's expected that he'll get through. But as always, that's subject to change.
That was reporter Garrett Shanley speaking with me about UF's search for a new president. If you're just joining us, this is the Rundown from WUFT News. I'm Kristen Shermont-Spina. Florida has a lot of stories to tell. Do you know your community's history? It's time for a trivia question. Dante Culpepper was a starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings and the Miami Dolphins. Which North Central Florida town did he grow up in? Stay tuned to the end of the show for the answer. A teacher in St. Johns County who is intersex says he was fired because he was perceived as transgender. As WUSF's Carrie Sheridan reports, the American Civil Liberties Union has filed a complaint saying he was discriminated against.
The first thing to know about Shepard Scalf, his mom taught language arts and was a huge influence.
She is like the queen of helping kids level up. She could bring a kid that can't read to a 3 in the matter of a school year. It's actually, I think it's wizardry.
Wizardry, maybe. An inspiration for sure. His mom sometimes brought him into her classroom when he was young.
It was so cool to me. I was like, this is really what I want to do.
He's 23 now and worked his way up from subbing to literacy coach to teaching language arts himself. He says he taught for 2 years in another district in Florida, and that went well, but his job wasn't renewed due to budget cuts. So he interviewed elsewhere, and last summer he was happy to get a call from the principal at Patriot Oaks Academy in St. John's. He was hired to teach middle school English.
I was so stoked. I was like, that's awesome. I loved the interview. I loved meeting him.
A few weeks into the school year, things were going well, he thought. Then he was called to the office. The principal, Drew Kyoto, read a letter from the superintendent, which said he could resign or be fired, but it wasn't clear why.
Mr. Kyoto was very clear that it was not a merit or performance or conduct-based termination. So it's like, if you're not firing me because I've done something wrong or I'm doing a bad job, then what else is there, you know?
Scalf is intersex, meaning a person with reproductive or sexual anatomy that doesn't fit the typical definition of male or female. Scalf was born with Swyer's syndrome. It's a rare genetic condition. Babies with it appear female, with a uterus, vagina, and fallopian tubes. But they have XY chromosomes, typically associated with male development. They don't develop ovaries or testicles, and they don't go through puberty without hormone therapy. An estimated 1.7% of people worldwide are intersex. Scalf says people like him often face discrimination.
Because it seems to be a reoccurring thing where someone, looks at me and is like, hey, you're kind of a funny looking man and you have a low man voice like you're supposed to. And you don't fit into what I think a man is supposed to look like. So something must be wrong with you. You must be weird in some way.
The ACLU is representing Scalf and filed a civil rights complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. His lawyer is Samantha Past.
No other prior discipline, no other prior conversations, nothing like that to indicate any reason for termination.
She says it seems there was a complaint from a parent
about the perception that he was transgender, and Shep is not transgender.
The filing seeks to reinstate Scalf as a teacher at the school.
The most important thing to us as Shep's attorneys and to Shep, right, is that he can get back in the classroom, and that's all he wants.
Florida is an at-will hire state, meaning employers can fire someone without cause. But state and federal laws aim to protect people from discrimination. Scalf says the only reason he got for his termination was that vague letter from the superintendent that gave no details as to why. Sylvan Frazier is legal and policy director at Interact, Advocates for Intersex Youth.
Even if you can be fired for no reason, you still can't be fired for a discriminatory reason.
A St. John's District spokeswoman said they will not comment on litigation matters. The superintendent in St. Johns County is Brennan Asplin. He was Sarasota's superintendent beginning in 2020. He's a Republican who said he tried to keep his personal views out of sight at work and got high ratings for his leadership through the pandemic and Hurricane Ian. But he was forced out in 2022 by a newly elected far-right conservative majority school board. One board member blamed him for poor academic achievement. At a heated school board meeting at the time, Asplin said it was all politics and nonsense.
You have to get the politics out of this school district. You have to.
We reached out to Asplin, but he did not respond. I'm Carrie Sheridan in Sarasota.
This is the rundown from WUFT News. I'm Kristen Shermont-Spina. Coming up on the show, a new collaboration between StoryCorps and NPR's Morning Edition is creating an audio time capsule for America's 250th birthday. That's after the quick break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Rundown. I'm Kristen Shermont-Spina. Regular listeners to Morning Edition on WUFT know that on Fridays you can hear StoryCorps. You know, the segment where two friends or family members record intimate conversations about their lives that get archived at the Library of Congress. Plus, people usually have a good cry. David Isay is the founder and president of StoryCorps. He recently spoke with WUFT's Morning Edition host Glenn Richards about a new collaboration between StoryCorps and Morning Edition called Connect 250.
People know that StoryCorps, we've had about 750,000 people across America, people who know and love each other, have these conversations that talk about what they've learned in life and how they want to be remembered and all the important things, kind of the opposite of small talk conversation. And all of it, as you said, goes to the Library of Congress. About a month ago, we at StoryCorps started thinking that what was happening for the 250th of the country wasn't quite hitting the mark and decided to try something a little bit different and created with Morning Edition something called Connect 250. And that is an effort to create a time capsule of who we are as Americans on the 250th anniversary of America, kind of a Hey America, Meet America sort of project where Morning Edition listeners are paired together, two strangers, to have a StoryCorps conversation, very typical of the ones that you hear that you say make folks cry on Morning Edition. All StoryCorps interviews are 40 minutes long. What you hear on Morning Edition are edits to 3 minutes, but these are 40-minute conversations that Connect 250 with a stranger who's a Morning Edition listener. We've had thousands of people register so far, and we hope to have tens of thousands or more people participate in this to leave a record for our great-great-great-grandchildren at the 350th anniversary of who we actually were at the 250th anniversary. And we're really excited to partner with Morning Edition and with WUFT on this effort.
Why celebrate America's 250th birthday this way? I mean, with strangers and not with loved ones.
First, I think what we wanted to do was something that was lasting, which is why we're doing it this way. People have the opportunity to do the interview with loved ones all the time. That's what standard StoryCorps is. But this technology is built for strangers, and this technology has the ability to scale kind of infinitely. And we thought that, we wanted to give as many people as possible a chance to participate. And also, there are all sorts of statistics now about how we're less neighborly than we used to be. People are much more afraid of, knocking on the door of neighbors than they were. You've heard there's all the cliches about how people used to be able to unlock their doors and the kids would play outside. And I think, we all want to get back to that, at least a little bit, in any way we can. So I think that, StoryCorps has always been kind of an empathy and a trust machine. And I think this ability of talking to strangers, and it's a little scary going in, but when you come out, even if you don't ever talk to them again, you have a friend. People come out of these interviews like it's an intense and wonderful experience, and I think a joyful experience. And it reminds you, how lucky we are to be alive. What's the point of being here on Earth if it's not to connect with other people? And this is kind of a connection machine.
And when will we hear these? Beginning when?
So we don't know how many people are going to participate. We don't know how many interviews we're going to get. Sometime in July, assuming that we have a lot of people register, we're going to start hearing these on Morning Edition. And, there may be a way that local stories, and it'll be only one person from the Gainesville area, but we can get local stories to you as well, and you guys can hear them.
That's Dave Isay from StoryCorps speaking with WUFT's Glenn Richards. They were discussing Connect 250, a national project in collaboration with NPR's Morning Edition to create a time capsule of America's voices and stories for America's 250th birthday. More information and pre-registration is available at connect250.org. You can hear the full conversation at wuft.org/FM. If you're just joining us, this is the rundown from WUFT News. I'm Kristen Shermont-Spina. As a reminder, our trivia question this week, Dante Culpepper was the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings and the Miami Dolphins. Which North Central Florida town did he grow up in? The answer's coming up at the end of the show. That's after a quick break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Rundown. I'm Kristen Shermont-Spina. June 30th is Social Media Day. And depending on who you are, that statement might have warranted a groan. Most of us spend more time scrolling than we'd like to admit. So that got us thinking, if you suddenly got that time back, what would you do with it? To get a better sense of the topic, we sent out WUFT's Michael Briseno to ask University of Florida students this question. If you stopped using social media today, what would you reclaim in your life?
My name is Elune Gonzalez. I think I would try to reclaim reading and writing more. I think I would definitely like to be able to write for a living, and I think doom scrolling or social media has definitely prevented me from being able to do that kind of stuff. It's something very easy to do, and something that overwhelms other desires that I have.
Hi, my name is Hannah Villamizar. I would probably reclaim different channels of communication with my friends, trying to reach out to them through different ways and feel connected to them, whether it be through letters, not through pigeon, but, just like, see how it's already really hard for me to even think of different channels of communications that isn't with social media, maybe through calls, stuff like that. But I appreciate letters, especially since they're well thought out, they're written, it's kind of something that we've lost.
Hi, I'm Ryan Kibler. I'm already not really on social media other than like YouTube type sites, which I don't post on myself, so I'm not really sure of what I'd reclaim in my life. Once I got off social media, I tried to prioritize chasing connections consciously through texting my friends through their number rather than like passively seeing what they're up to through posts and stuff like that. Social media has made it way too easy to just kind of monitor everyone but not show high levels of care. But I think it's far superior to just call your friend on a random day and see how they're doing rather than just expect to check how they're doing.
My name is Salmia Joseph. I think I would reclaim my own fashion choice and like sense of style, because a lot of what I wear is obviously like inspired by, like content creators of what's like popular right now. So I think I would probably like go thrifting more and really just look at things and be like, do I like it, or is it just something like that's popular? I think I'm gonna explore with more colors, because I really do only wear like black and dark colors. I really want to try hot pink, something crazy. I just want to use college as that time to like experiment with my fashion sense.
My name is Amanda Tessero. I think I would reclaim spending more time with my daughter. It's important to not get like absorbed into social media, especially when you have important people around you, and young kids too who are like impressionable at a very early age. I think I won't start implementing, technology in her life probably till she's able to ask for it and understand the boundaries of what's appropriate usage of it and not.
Those were University of Florida students speaking about what they would reclaim in their lives if they stopped using social media today. The story was produced by WUFT's Michael Briseno. Before we end the show today, we have another edition of Bird Note. Today's episode is about a bird that lives in the Okefenokee Swamp on the border of Florida and Georgia.
This is Bird Note. It's morning in the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge, land set aside to protect the fabled Okefenokee Swamp of Georgia and Florida. With so much water, it's not surprising that frog calls surround us. Tall cypress trees and Spanish moss give the swamp a prehistoric appearance. Suddenly, there's a flash of gold as a small bird hops onto a cypress knee. It's a prothonotary warbler, one of the most striking of the swamp's denizens. Having wintered in a mangrove swamp in the West Indies, this male returned to the Okefenokee and established a breeding territory. With loud song and brilliant colors, it attracted a mate, and now has raised a nestful of young. Prothonotaries have longer bills than most warblers, and they use them to probe into tree bark and clumps of curled leaves. Swamps are productive places, and the pair of warblers easily found enough small insects to feed their brood of 4. Because they live down in the realm of trunks and branches rather than up in the leaves, the prothonotary has adopted a very unusual nesting habit for a warbler. It nests in natural crevices or old downy woodpecker holes. For BirdNote, I'm Mary McCann.
That was BirdNote, a nonprofit independent media production that inspires listeners to care about the natural world and take steps to protect it. The Rundown is a production of WUFT News out of the University of Florida College of Journalism and Communications. The team that made the show possible this week includes Dave Bearswain, Dana Hill, Garrett Shanley, Carrie Sheridan, Glenn Richards, and Michael Briseño. Our trivia question this week was, Dante Culpepper was a starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings and the Miami Dolphins. Which North Central Florida town did he grow up in? The answer? Ocala. Culpepper attended Vanguard High School. After his senior season in 1994, he was named Mr. Football in the state of Florida. He attended the University of Central Florida, where he rewrote almost all of the school's quarterback records. That's it for the Rundown. I'm Kristen Shermont Spina.